Morning everyone, hope you're all well. Nice to see you all this Saturday morning. I'm just out of the gym, would you believe? You can probably see that actually. Looking a bit sweaty, but you don't need to know about that. Not been feeling great these last couple of weeks, so I'm just trying to sweat it out of the system, but feeling very, very unfit for this time of year. Can't seem to get any real momentum in the gym. Just been so busy with transfers, even though there's no transfers happening. And then I was actually down in Manchester City earlier this week doing some stuff around the Real Madrid game, and then previewing the match against Newcastle today. But anyway, you don't need to know about that. What I'm on for is to talk about an interview that will be dropping this morning on Sky Sports News. It's an extended interview with Martin DUBRAVKA, the Newcastle goalkeeper. A good sort of 10-12 minutes worth of chat with me and him will be shown on the channel this morning on Soccer Saturday pre-match, sometime between 10 and 12. I think probably a little bit later, so probably towards the back end of the show. So if you're just catching this now, and you're at home, you might see the interview or be able to record it. It was the first time DUBRAVKA has spoken since all the transfer coverage in January, when of course it was widely reported that Al-Shabaab, the Saudi Pro League side, were in talks with the Slovakian goalkeeper over a move to the Saudi Pro League. And as we know, DUBRAVKA ended up staying beyond the end of January, and it's been mentioned by Eddie Howe a number of times that he's in contract talks over an extension to his deal, which of course is up at the end of the season. So it was really nice to speak to Martin, because it just gave him an opportunity really to clear a few things up and you know, tell the story from his point of view. So it was quite an enthralling chat, and there's quite a few nice lines and interesting stories and developments out of that. So try and see it if you can. I will on this video post a link to our online offering, so there will be quotes there, and you'll also be able to see some of the sort of main answers from DUBRAVKA during that interview. But I thought I would just come on and summarise it a little bit as well. Look, he was quite frank and honest, and said, look, there was an offer on the table. He said discussions had been taking place since early December with a club. He didn't want to name the club, but look, it's widely known that it was Al-Shabaab over in Saudi Arabia, and there was a big offer on the table for him in terms of wages. You know, he's coming towards the end of his career at 36, and he's got a young family, and I think it was a real it was a head turner for him at this stage. And obviously knowing, as he pointed out to me, that his contract was up at the end of the season, he had to take it seriously. But like all things in football, it's never simple, and the talks coincided with Nick Pope being injured in December, DUBRAVKA getting into the team, and then not just getting into the team but doing really, really well, and Newcastle going on I think it was a 9-match winning run, of which DUBRAVKA played a key role. The start of that coincided exactly with his entrance into the team. His first game was that 4-0 win against Leicester, where he didn't have to do too much, but then in the games after that he made some really top saves, kept a number of clean sheets, and of course was part of the 2 matches against Arsenal in January, when of course Newcastle booked a place in the Carabao Cup final. Now we all saw his reaction to you guys, to the Newcastle fans, after the first leg against Arsenal down at the Emirates. He was in tears at the end of the game, and I asked him about that, and he said, well, look, at that stage, you know, it felt like I was going to go. You know, I didn't know for sure, he said, but the offer was there, and I didn't know what the club wanted and what the best thing was for moving forward. So he said, and this is very rare for a modern day footballer, I have to say, but he said he left it up to the club to decide. He said he decided not to push to move, didn't want to agitate, didn't want to cause any problems. He said he was content because he was in the team, and he left it up to them to decide. So it sounds as though, well, it doesn't sound as though, he said he had, you know, long chats with Eddie Howe, the Newcastle manager, also Paul Mitchell, the sporting director, and there was a decision made between them that the best thing for DUBRAVKA to do was to stay until the end of the season. And with that, he said the club have kind of promised him that they'll discuss a new contract, and while that hasn't been agreed yet, he said he is close to agreeing a contract extension beyond the end of the summer. Now, he wouldn't tell me as to the duration of that, whether that's just another year or a couple of years, but he said it was his priority to remain with Newcastle in the Premier League. You know, he says he's been there for 7 or 8 years now. He said he's absolutely loved his time. It's a home for him now. You know, he lives in the city. His kids go to nursery. I think he's got a 3 or 4 month old baby as well, and he says he feels like an adopted Geordie now. And he says, look, the Premier League is the best league in the world. I don't want to leave there to go to Saudi at this stage of my career unless I have to. So I think he was talking about leaving in January because there was no new offer on the table. But had there been an offer on the table, he would have remained. Now that offer has come as a result of Pope's injury, DUBRAVKA getting into the team and then doing so well. And I think the club have looked at it and thought, look, you know, we need to make him stay, we need to offer him something, and those talks are continuing. There's obviously an understanding from DUBRAVKA's part that those talks will be concluded, because I have to say it's surprising that it's not done yet. I thought it would have been a pretty simple agreement, but it's yet to be announced. But I have to say he seemed very relaxed about it when I spoke to him on Thursday. And he's pleased, he's happy, he's content. He says he's loving his football just now, and he wants to stay in the team. And he says, look, a key line from him in the interview, he said, look, I am where I belong, and that is in that Newcastle United dressing room. I don't think he was unhappy about being number 2. I think he was okay about that. He knows Nick Pope's a quality goalkeeper, and you know, he left the club a couple of years ago to go back to Manchester United, and he brought that up a couple of times. I think he's got a real concern or worry that some of the fans maybe didn't appreciate the fact he left for Manchester United, and he was keen to point out that it was something he felt he had to do to play football, and that he's always been committed to Newcastle. But it sounded as though he was okay being number 2, but now he's number 1 at the moment. He's got the gloves. It's a perfect situation for him, and why would you give that up to move to the Saudi Pro League when, 1, you're number 1 at the moment, playing well at a club you love, and 2, you've got a cup final around the corner. He said the fact that they were in the semi-final with a cup final wasn't really playing in his mind. I have to question that. I think any player looking to move in January with a potential cup final around the corner, I mean, Sean Longstaff's one that we've mentioned before, and look, that's one reason, you know, local Geordie lad, why would he ever want to leave in January when there was the potential to, you know, become an absolute club legend? I would say that was probably playing in DUBRAVKA's mind. I mean, it wasn't obviously for Almiron because he was out of the team. I think it's different for Longstaff, and I think probably a bit different for DUBRAVKA as well, because he kind of feels like a Geordie now, given the amount of time he's been here. So look, he said those talks are taking place behind the scenes. He's confident it'll get done, and he said he thinks the reason that Eddie Howe, Paul Mitchell and the hierarchy have decided to sit down and offer him a new contract is because he was so professional and he didn't push to leave, and he was, you know, got on with his job. And he just said during that spell, you know, during the end of December, beginning of January, he said all I wanted to do was concentrate on my football. I was really loving playing, didn't want any distractions. And then before he knew it was the end of January, he was still in the team, and I think he thought, well, look, let's give this a go. It might be wrong for me to do that. So I think probably the offer on the table from Newcastle is probably similar sort of wages to what he was being offered over in Saudi. So an uplift on what he's getting at the moment. And you know, at that stage in his career, 36 years old, he might end up going back to being number 2, but it gives him security in the sort of short to medium term future. And look, it's worked out well for him. You have to say the timing of it has worked out perfectly, and I think that was why he was so relaxed and happy about the situation. Look, if talks do break down, I'm sure Al Shabab or maybe another Saudi club will come to the table in the summer, and he's proved in the last couple of months that he's still a top level goalkeeper, and of course still is the Slovakian number 1 as well. But as well as the talk about that, and the confirmation from him that Al Shabab were in, and confirmation from him that the talks been taking place over a new deal. There's some really nice stuff, actually, some real nice featurey, fun stuff about the cup final 2 years ago, because you'll remember at that stage he was cup tied for Newcastle, couldn't play due, obviously Nick Pope was injured, suspended, couldn't play because he was on loan at Manchester United, but he wasn't actually playing then at Manchester United. They couldn't recall him. And he was down there at the final in Wembley, and he said he was at Trafalgar Square the night before the game with his family, and he said hundreds and hundreds of Newcastle fans were coming up to him and saying, look, who are you going to be supporting? And he said, look, although I was officially a Manchester United player at the time, I was supporting Newcastle. I wanted them to win desperately, and you know, at the end of the game, he said it was such a weird feeling being at that game, knowing that he had like kind of a foot in both camps. He said he spent the morning shopping in London, trying to take his mind off of it, couldn't, went to the game, said it was a really weird, almost trying for people not to notice him. And then he said after the game, a couple of the coaching staff and people that work behind the scenes at Old Trafford came up to him and offered him a winner's medal, and he turned it down. He said, no, I don't want that, because well, it's against my parent club, and a club I've got so much love and admiration for. So he turned down the medal. But then he said a couple of months later, a medal arrived in the post via his agency. So he's actually got a winner's medal from that final, would you believe? But he says it doesn't feel like a real one, and he only wants a real one for Newcastle next month against Liverpool in the final. And it'll be really interesting to see if DUBRAVKA is still in goal come that game. I mean, look, he's done terrifically well. I think we all agree. He's really good with his feet. I think we'll agree he's better with his feet than Pope. I think Pope's probably a better shot stopper and obviously a bigger presence in goal. I don't think there's a huge deal between them. I mean, weirdly, at the end of last season, you would have said there was, because when DUBRAVKA was in, he looked like he was struggling a bit, and you know, I think Newcastle really missed Nick Pope towards the end of the season, but it feels like he's stepped up his levels over the last couple of months. Pope's obviously been out injured. It'll take him a couple of games to come back. It'll be really interesting to see what Eddie Howe decides to do with this, because look, I think without doubt Pope is his number one choice. He would never go on record to say that, but you know, the teams that he's picked over his 3 years in charge would suggest that. And the fact that, you know, DUBRAVKA was number one when Eddie arrived, and he signed Pope pretty quickly. I think it was in the next summer. So yeah, it'll be interesting. I mean, we've got 5 games until the final. I don't think you can thrust Pope in on the final. You would need to have a couple of games under his belt. So I think these next couple of games, Man City today, Forest, and then Liverpool, will tell a lot as to what Eddie decides to do. I mean, it would be pretty cutthroat if he was to remove DUBRAVKA from the starting lineup and put in Pope in the next couple of weeks if DUBRAVKA's still playing well. Look, I think if he makes a mistake, I think if there's not even a clanger, I think if there's a semi-mistake, it would give him an excuse to make a change or a reason for it. But it would be a big decision to take DUBRAVKA out when he's been playing as well as what he has. And look, I think Eddie would like to get Pope back into the team for his physicality and how good he is at corners and whatnot. But it'd be pretty harsh to take DUBRAVKA out now. So let's see what the next couple of weeks brings. I certainly don't think you bring Pope in for the final or even the game before. I think he needs 2 games under his belt. So I think these next 3 games are crucial as to working out exactly what they're going to do. Obviously Pope played last week against Birmingham and got 90 minutes under his belt, but that was a cup tie. I would expect DUBRAVKA to be back in the side today, and then we'll see what the next couple of weeks bring. So really interesting point that, because I think the rest of the team pretty much picks itself. With the one, you know, the centre back, he's have the decision what to do in the centre backs, but I wouldn't be surprised if he went to 3 again in the final if they're all fit with Cher popping up into midfield to help. But then if Joe Linton's back, Joe Linton plays. So yeah, sorry. So it'll be interesting. I think the goalkeeper is the biggest decision he's got to make. So anyway, really interesting stuff from DUBRAVKA. He's in really good light-hearted mood, enjoying his football, loving it at the moment, and you know, just talking about his love for Newcastle and how it's his dream for him to, you know, to win a trophy and be part of that team that finally lifts some silverware. So catch the interview, Sky Sports News this morning between 10 and 12. As I say, I'll post the link at the bottom to the online stuff. There'll be some clips in there if you don't see it. And good luck at the match today. All right, cheers guys, speak soon, bye bye.